Now that I've finally finished all the guaranteed blades, sans a few special characters that are much more difficult to get than the other guaranteed blades, I figured it's time to move on to everyone's favorite part of Xenoblade 2, the Gotcha blades. First up on our list of blades to cover, I decided on Percival for no real reason other than I just felt like talking about him. Percival is essentially the fourth katana class weapon we have covered so far, although technically third since Corvin has a unique special weapon that's literally a katana, but whatever. And I'd say Percival represents a blade with a strong specific niche, even if he isn't the greatest for everyday general use. I wish more of the lower tier blades were like this, where they have specific situations they're strong in and other situations they're not very good in, because then at least all blades could feel useful depending on the situation, but alas, a lot of lower tier blades are just bad all the time. Regardless though, Percival actually can be strong in the right situations, and in this video we're going to be discussing those situations, as well as all of the strengths and weaknesses and how to use them the most effectively. If you enjoy this type of guide content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, and look forward to all of my future blade guides, both good and bad, because it does help out so much. Let's get into it. So Percival is a dark blade and a katana class weapon. The katana weapon has some of the most well-rounded stats in the entire game, with an average auto attack stat along with a very high maximum critical hit rate, able to reach 50% with the Moon Matter core chip. It also has the second highest block rate tier in the game, but most katanas are about evasion, so block rate isn't super important. His physical defense is 20% and ether defense is 30%, so he's a bit less tanky on the physical side than a lot of tank class blades we've seen so far, but he's also designed to be a bit more offensive in general compared to his counterparts of the weapon class. His stat mod is only a 10% agility mod, so not too high, which is unfortunate, and he also has a blade switch cooldown of 4 when maxed out for average availability. Let's take a look at his skill tree and see what sets him apart though. Percival's first skill is Brandish. This ability has a 1% chance to fell humanoid enemies on attacks at level 1, rising up to 5% at level 5. So humanoid enemies are Turkins, Ignas, Garluses, and of course humans themselves. This will not work on all the strong or important humanoid enemies, but considering many times humanoid enemies have low health and fight in groups, this ability might be in play a decent amount. I personally don't care much for instant execution skills, especially when they rely on RNG, but among the ones in the game, this is one of the better ones since 5% on every hit is actually pretty decently reliable, and can make clearing out mobs of humanoid enemies much easier, especially if you're not optimized for damage yet. Although, ultimately, with one of Percival's other skills, you likely won't have to worry about lack of damage much in multi-enemy fights with him. All in all, this is a very specific skill, but a decent enough skill in those situations. Useless all other times, but that's fine. Percival's second skill is Soul Sucker. This will restore 45% health to Percival's driver every time an enemy is defeated in combat, rising up to 75% at level 5. This is basically your free healing in multi-enemy fights, and further leans into Percival's niche of being a blade designed to take on a lot of enemies at once. A 75% heal per enemy defeated can easily keep you topped off in health in those kinds of fights, given Percival's good evasion capabilities and decent defenses. I wouldn't say this is the most useful skill, given how it's useless against single targets, and even against multiple enemies it isn't too difficult to keep up your health, but it is a nice skill for a tank to remain healthy. The real strength of Percival comes from his final skill, Eater of Men. This will increase his damage by 90% for each enemy defeated in combat, rising up to 150% at level 5, capping out at 300%. So back to those multi-enemy fights again. Defeat an enemy, get a massive damage increase. Defeat another enemy, get another massive damage increase. 300% is a huge additive damage total that is actually higher than any other tank blade can reach in the game as far as skill tree effects, and can make Percival quite the heavy hitter in long drawn out fights against multiple enemies. This effect will not reset upon switch either, since the game will keep track of total enemies defeated in the same fight, and it will also not reset between phases of challenge mode because that all counts as the same fight. So this can make Percival very strong in challenge mode, where you often fight lots of weak mobs before fighting stronger enemies at the final phases, because you can really take advantage of this damage bonus in those fights. This skill is incredibly useful for giving Percival his niche as a strong character in fights against multiple enemies, even more so than the other abilities, because 300% really is just that good. Now, of course, Percival sucks against single enemy targets because he cannot get this additive or his healing skill, and he probably isn't going to be able to use his 5% chance to fell enemy skill against most of the important single target enemies either. This means Percival can sometimes have 3 completely useless battle skills, making him absolutely awful in those situations, so keep that in mind if you plan to use him. He is absolutely a blade that has a specific niche purpose that should be stuck to when you want to use him. Let's talk about his specials now. Percival's level 1 special is Dark Serpent. This is a 4-hit ether-based special with a decent area of effect radius and average speed. It has the standard damage ratio you might expect at this point, the one that's 480 when maxed out at max affinity, and all around it probably isn't too amazing of a special. Its bonus effect doesn't really do it many favors either, since it's only increasing aggro drawn, and a damage bonus effect likely would have been more helpful. Still, having area of effect and being 4 hits can be pretty nice, so it does have that going for it, and 4 hits on a level 1 can make it okay in certain chain attacks if damage is optimized, but overall you'll likely have a better option than Percy for that. Percival's level 2 special is Blade Vortex. This special has one of the funniest animations in the game. It's like those anime sword fighter cliches where they move so fast and begin sheathing their sword before the actual slash hits the enemy. It's probably my favorite thing about it because besides that, this is a single hit special with kinda poor speed and no area of effect. In other words, it's not really that good. The damage ratio is also fairly unimpressive, being 400 at level 1, 560 at level 5, and 580 at max affinity, putting it on the lower end of level 2 special damage ratios so far. The good news is that it has a pretty good damage bonus effect of increasing damage to enemies targeting the user, and hopefully as a tank blade you have aggro with Percival. That can actually make it hit harder than many of his other options, and for a move outside of a chain attack, it can actually do some pretty decent damage under the right situations. All in all, though, it is not a particularly impressive special move either. Percival's level 3 is Grim Moon. This is a 2-hit physical special with a pretty average damage ratio of 500 at level 1, 700 at level 5, and 748 at max affinity. It has a pretty large area of effect radius, making it very good against multiple enemies, which synergizes well with the rest of his kit. It's much wider than his level 1 even. It also has a 25% critical hit modifier, so critical hits can be very common with this special. It also likely is the fastest of his 3 specials, so that's another positive for it. The bonus effect, however, isn't very good since it only gives a 3% chance to instantly kill non-unique enemies, and with only 2 hits, that's extremely unreliable and almost never will come into play. It's a good special for its area of effect, but not much else besides that, and all around it seems that unimpressive specials are just a part of who Percival is, sadly. Percival's level 4 doesn't seem like it's going to change this trend. It's called Demon Quadrant. It has a total damage ratio of 1000, which is pretty average, and it also shares the same bonus effect as the level 3, which is very specific and not going to come into play often since small chances of instant kills against non-unique enemies are incredibly rare. It also comes with a 50% critical hit modifier, so basically every attack can be a critical hit, so that's one benefit at the very least. It also does cool things that level 4 specials do, like give invincibility and freeze driver combos. All around, though, there's not anything super strong about this special to make it worth using over any other special, but that's all of his specials, so I guess in a way you can just pick whatever special you want and it'll probably be fine. Percival really lives off that 300% additive to carry him. For setup, I'm naturally running the Moon Matter core chip to get the 50% critical hit rate, which is very nice. Tachyon has an awful effect with Katana, so there's no real decision here since the block rate loss is unimportant. Percival is one of those blades that Monolith cursed with only a single aux core slot, so the best option is likely going to be Affinity Max Attack. You can run Night Vision if you really need accuracy, and you can also run something like Art's Heal in certain fights that I'm going to actually show off here in a little bit. And between only a single aux core slot, mediocre specials, and his 3 skills being very specific, Percival really does suck outside of multi-enemy fights, so once again, make sure you stick to that niche where he can really be nice as a blade. For accessories, I'm running Dauntless Boots because Percy is a katana and does like to have evasion so he can do more damage and keep aggro. My common blades are also agility mod katanas to increase Morag's agility to over 800 and gives you very high odds to dodge almost every attack in the game, sans a few enemies with very high dexterity. I'm also running Abyss Mask because I don't plan to get hit often, so taking more damage doesn't really matter to me that much. To be safer, you can run a different damage increase as usual though. Crimson Headband is a great option for Percival since he'll get huge added to damage totals in multi-enemy fights, and you want to use him in those anyway, so getting a 60% boost to critical damage can give a nice additional multiplier to that and make him hit very hard. Percival can get higher art damage than even Corvin with everything maxed out, but will still lose in total DPS simply because Corvin has super amazing special damage ratios. For pouch items, sticking to art recharge and favorites of both Morag and Percival is a pretty good option to consider. Victory Smoothie is also just really good for party gauge gain in general, so that's always nice. You may also want to consider Percival on Rex since he has a good katana kit as well, and may function better for Percival's offensive focus. With all that done, let's take a look at how to use Percival practically. So, as you know, Percival's strength are multi-enemy fights, and as I mentioned earlier, Challenge Mode will count as one continuous fight throughout all of the waves. So, in some of these fights where you fight strong enemies at the end, you can quickly get your 300% additive just by killing 2 enemies like this right at the very start, and then you will suddenly already have your 300% damage additive, and you will be able to do massive damage for the rest of the fight, which is very nice. Unlike most videos that I do on these where I show off multiple fights, I'm just going to show off one long continuous fight this time, because I think that shows off Percival's strength a little bit better here. So, Wave 2, you're going to see I'm going to be doing quite a bit more damage at the start of this than I did at the start of Phase 1, because I've kept the 300% damage additive bonus. And we're going to just be doing quite a bit of damage with arts like Eclipse Blade and Aerial Slash. My level 1 special with the Area of Effect I'm able to use as soon as I get that charged up to hit multiple enemies and do quite a bit of damage to them. It didn't hit this other Gogol over here, but that's not a big deal, because Percival is going to be able to do plenty of damage just fine. I can just use another level 1 special really quickly there to get the remaining damage I need. And we're going to move on to Phase 3 of the fight. So, Phase 3 in this fight has a couple wolves and a much larger Gogol. We're going to target the much larger Gogol and try to AoE down all the wolves with our level 1 special again. I have Dagus and Mithra for support. Dagus is going to increase our damage even further and also gives even more AoE for a fight like this. And Mithra, of course, increases the evasion of Percival even further, so we're basically not going to be able to get hit by anything, which is very, very nice. That'll only last till the final phase, though. The final phase, Carlos, of course, has some of the highest dexterity in the game, so he'll be going through some of our evasion at times. But you can kind of clearly see just how easily I'm just kind of rampaging through these enemies thanks to that 300% damage added to Percival has. It gives him quite a large amount of damage against enemies. And it ends up being very useful overall, especially against enemies that have more health, and we're able to clear out these mobs pretty dang quickly because of the strength of just having that 300%. Alright, so I clear out one of the Roguels in just one special there. The other one survives, I guess, because all the attacks didn't hit him because he was moving, but that's not really a big deal. And we're going to finish out the Rogel Master and then move on to the fun part of the fight against Immovable Air Carlos. So Carlos is probably the strongest enemy, like single enemy in the game. You could say that Ardanian Kuradal might be up there, but I would say Carlos is a little bit stronger than him overall. Carlos has a really high agility. It's very difficult to hit him without foresight or night vision or something. He has probably the second highest dexterity in the game, so he'll be able to hit through some of our evasion at times, so that's not very good. But I am running the Arts Heal 6, which is going to give me a 5.5% max health heal every time I use an art, which is going to be all we really need to remain healthy throughout this fight. And Carlos in general can just hit really hard, so like some of his attacks can just do quite a bit of damage. I've been a little bit unlucky early on with his attacks. He's actually gone through my evasion quite a few times, but there's a miss finally. That's kind of nice. With the minimal amount of healing I have, that's going to just keep us healthy. You could run like an Avant-Garde medal or something if you want to, but then you would lose your evasion for other sections. I guess it doesn't matter that much, though. But I'm also running a Bisque Mask, so the goal is to just not get hit much, if at all. So that's the other thing. I'm trying to keep as much damage as I possibly can, and the Arc Seal is going to allow me to do that decently effectively. So I am going to speed up part of this fight, because it does get a little bit long here, but then once it gets a little interesting again, I will unstop the speed up. Unstop is not a word, but that's fine. So I'm going to speed up the fight until we get to the point where he enrages, because we're just doing some damage to him just right now overall. And I'm also planning to do a chain attack here to try to get to that section faster. Hypergraviton, of course, is going to set up an orb on him, and we're going to do decreased damage to him while that's active, so we want to deactivate that orb as soon as possible. But I also wanted to get the blade combo damage on him, so that was the goal with that. And Percival's level 2, you're going to be able to see, is able to hit damage cap here in this chain attack, so that's very nice. Even without any kind of, like, fusion combo or anything, so that's a pretty good thing about that special. And we're about to at the point where he's going to get enraged very soon here. And once that happens, we'll be able to do even more damage to him, since once again he enrages to light element and will take increased damage from dark attacks. So you saw me get down to very low health there, 1 HP, but that's okay because I'm able to survive anyway, which is very cool. I'm able to use Eclipse Blade to block the Wild Wade after he enrages. So keep that in mind. You do have a guaranteed evasion art if you're worried about a really dangerous attack. I've got plenty of healing thanks to the healing I've got. So even though I got down to 1 HP because of some bad luck there, I'm still able to get back to full health now, which is very nice. And we're going to just set up another orb on him pretty soon. Actually, I accidentally used my level 2 special there, so there's no orb yet. You were able to see, though, that level 2 did damage cap outside of chain attacks. That's actually really nice. You will do a lot of damage to Carlos if you are using a Dark Element Blade after he enrages, so that is one really cool thing about Dark Blades like Percival. They get a very good bonus against one of the strongest enemies in the game. And with the 300% additive we have from the rest of the fight, that is additionally beneficial because we're able to just do a ton of art damage here as well, as you've probably been able to see. All of our critical hits can hit very hard outside of Quadruple Slash, which is just 4 hits with kind of a low damage ratio, but that's the only art that's not really going to be hurting that much. But the one benefit of that art is the fact that it has a very low cooldown and allows us to cancel our arts more efficiently to charge up our specials faster. So you can actually get even more evasion than this and probably be able to dodge more of his attacks more consistently if you use Shulk over Dagas, because then you would have both Monado speed and Foresight buffs along with 800 agility, which is very nice. I get down to 1 HP again, so that means that one of the times I got to 1 HP, my Unbeatable didn't even activate, and I just got really lucky with the damage numbers, which is actually pretty cool. So, I guess that was this time. So I guess I'm just a very lucky person, which is very nice. I'm able to continue showing off this fight to the best of my ability. Now I use Wild Wave to activate the chain attack so we don't get hit by Wild Wave and lose our party meter or just die in general. And we're able to do a decent amount of damage to him in this chain attack as well. I'll sped up some of the fight again at this point just so we're not sitting here wasting a ton of time watching this. But you're able to see with Percival's good evasion, we're able to dodge dangerous attacks with stuff like his actual evasion art. I've been trying to use Eclipse Blade to do that more consistently. And just in general, you're able to see that his offensive nature allows him to take on an enemy like this, even though he's typically a more defensive type of blade. Or at least his weapon would lend himself to that. But fortunately, we're able to still take down this enemy with Percival, despite having a more defensive weapon, of course. This point is almost dead, and I actually end up having some really unfortunate luck happen to me here. And I played a little bit risky because I'm like, oh, I'm just going to kill him right here in just a second, so I can just afford to play risky. And of course, on the very last hit here, he's going to kill me because it actually eliminates just the lamb when he has a sliver of health left. But fortunately, I have full party meter, so my allies are able to revive me, and we can actually finish this off properly. Zeke also dies at the end there just for a little bit of extra good measure. One thing about dying, though, that is pretty cool is that you still keep the added damage bonus when you get revived. And yeah, Percival's a great blade when you have multiple enemy fights and get that 300% damage additive, and he's pretty terrible otherwise, so make sure you use him in these specific situations he's actually good in. That's going to cover it for this specific guide video, so I hope you all learned something from watching and are still enjoying the content I am putting out. And if you like this kind of guide content, please be sure to support me by liking the video, commenting down below, and sharing with all your friends, subscribing to the channel, and any other way you want to support me, following me on Twitter, whatever else, I don't care. Look forward to more Xenoblade 2 content in the future. I am doing something special for the anniversary tomorrow, or at least I'm going to try to. And thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.